was behind this powerful public ministry that we see in Jesus's life was the life that he had of intimacy with the Father.
Mm.
And they knew there was something about when Jesus connects with the Father, all of this other stuff is happening. So we don't have to worry about, well, how do I teach? How do I prophesy? All that's a byproduct of intimacy and relationship with the Father. And that is prayer. Prayer is not this, we can look at it different ways. It's something that just we do, but it's the connection. It's the continual intimacy with him.
Yeah. And really quick, what would you say to like someone who may be even dismissing, like, man, I love the idea of intimacy, but I don't have any time in my schedule for intimacy with him because I feel overwhelmed. What would you say to someone like that who's very quick to maybe dismiss what you just said?
Yeah. Well, I think that we're, first of all, and I mean, this might sound cliche, but it's just the first thing that comes to my mind, Jeff. The reality of it is that if we're too busy to pray, we're too busy not to pray and have that relationship with him. Because I just go back to the story of Mary and Martha, where the Lord gives us this, let's say this is this comparison. A lot of people are like, well, are you a Mary or Martha? And I don't believe it's about, Martha was busy and Mary was preoccupied with the things of the Lord. I think it's not about one or the other. I think it's Mary before Martha. I think it's if somebody feels, and we've all been in those seasons, then that's something that you can ask the Lord to change. Sometimes it's your perspective. Sometimes it's like making time, whatever that thing is. What is it that's making you too busy not to pray? What is it because in this story, what the Lord is showing us, I just want to read that scripture to you right now.
Yeah.
And it says, now as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving. And she went up to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her. So the Lord, he wants to have preeminence in everything that we do, Jeff. And that's at the end of the day, that's when we put him first, and we put our fellowship and our intimacy with him first. There isn't going to be this thing of like, I'm too busy to pray. I don't have the time to pray, because we take the Lord. And I think that there is so much spiritual warfare involved at the moment that we say, I'm going to set aside 10 minutes sacred every single day just to spend time with the Lord. All of a sudden you'll start getting calls from people that you never got calls from. All of a sudden the kids are screaming, and they weren't screaming up until that very moment. But I think that there's a realization that we have to come to in our maturity and our relationship with the Lord, that there comes a place where when we make that time for him, everything else in our lives is going to flow from that place. The power of any marriage, of any godly marriage, ministry, you name it, all the things, right? All the things that we do here, I believe, come from the plumb line of intimacy and prayer with the Lord. So my challenge to that person would be, and because we've all walked through those seasons, is, Lord, help me to make the time and overcome the temptation of being too busy, of being distracted as Martha was, and help me to become the Mary of Bethany, the one that puts you first, no matter what else is going on around.
Yeah. And I will say also, just to add to this, that I think and this is going to seem like a no-brainer to maybe more seasoned believers listening or watching, but younger believers, maybe not so much, but redefining what intimacy means. Because if God is supposed to be a part of every aspect of their life, I would argue that you can engage in intimacy with them like that. like right there.
Wow,
One of the
that's
most
right.
powerful times I had with the Lord, I was breaking down a pallet of bananas at Trader Joe's. So that was an encounter I had with the Lord during a time of prayer,
Yeah,
that totally marked me. Was that
yeah.
so that was breaking down a pallet of bananas. I was working, I was
Yes.
busy, I was under the clock, I was trying to get something done as quick as possible, and then God was like, hold on. Bzzz, and then zapped me, but so for those of you who maybe your definition of intimacy is closed off in a room with no interruptions, not everybody not everyone is in a place where they can do that.
Yeah,
And especially if they have young kids who need to be around them every second of every day, not everybody can afford that type of that type of a definition of intimacy. So
yeah,
redefining that and realizing that you can engage in it wherever you are, you can grow with God. God is aware that we need to work, we need to all those things, but not
yeah,
letting those things take the place of that priority, which is intimacy, which is what you're talking
yeah,
about.
yeah. And we saw that with Jesus, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
He carried his relationship and his fellowship with the Father on. It was in personal, in a private place, but it was on public display, because even before he raised Lazarus, he stopped, and what did he do? He prayed. And he's like, this isn't for me. This is so that they could see. And he stopped. And you see, I don't know about you, but when I read that scripture of Jesus communing with the Father in that very public, I feel like it's almost like you're watching again a very personal moment with him, because it's just him and the Father.
Mm-hmm.
And though he talks to the Father and then he performs a miracle, and he was doing this as he went. So you're right, Jeff. There's times where, and I believe that this is, I mean, we do have to, I mean, that part of our life is communing with him in a private way. Sometimes that's closing a door, sometimes that's driving in your car, sometimes it's doing the dishes and you're communing with him.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reality of it is that the communion with the Lord doesn't stop when we leave our prayer closet, or
Yeah.
wherever that prayer closet goes with us wherever we go
Mm-hmm.
and wherever we are, whether we're with people or not.